I'm the rabbi and senior Jewish educator at Hillel, which is like around the corner, across from Insomnia Cookies and McKinley Presbyterian Church. I was an English and Creative Writing and Jewish Studies major, graduated in 2006. And something interesting about the Book of Ruth that I really think that I'm not going to present about tonight, but would be happy to discuss further with you, is that there are many Jewish scholars who, and I was talking to Amy about this, there are many Jewish scholars who see the relationship between Ruth and Naomi as really, really queer. Really queer. Like that, rather than the relationship between Ruth and Boaz as being the highlight central relationship, the central relationship is between Ruth and Naomi. I will not be talking about that tonight, but I can another time.
I'm Dan, and I'm one of the geezers here.
We love that.
And anyway, I'm a retired speech path, and as far as the Book of Ruth, just amazing on the transitions that she had to go through. I don't think I could do that kind of thing.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate. Excuse me. I am a graduate student here at the School of Library and Information Sciences, and I'm studying to be a youth services librarian. And yeah.
Oh, and something interesting about something that you've studied so far, or if this is your first time here.
So I think it's interesting looking more like the women's issues, and I found like looking at the power structure of like Ruth when she has to lay at his feet in bed, and it's like, oh my God, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Joel. I'm a therapist at the counseling center. I've seen you around before at different events. And I would say just the themes of more of the despair at the beginning and then the sense of hopefulness towards the end and kind of how that changed through the book beautifully, I think. There's a lot of changing that goes on with those themes.
My name is Ray, and I'm even an older geezer than Dan. And the Book of Ruth, the main thing that I take away from it is the break in what appears to be tradition, like by including the Moabites into the family of Israel.
I'm Melanie. I am a junior studying environmental science and global studies, and it's been a long time since I've read Ruth, and so all of it's interesting to be reintroduced to.
Awesome.
I'm Daniel. I'm a graduate student in engineering college. I'm interested in Book of Ruth because I saw the similar between the story 2,000 years ago and the story happening now. Like, I'm from China. Many girls in China have to marry someone to get economically stable like that. So yeah, I am very interested about the story.
Thank you.
I'm Janet. I'm married to the geezer. I'm a retired ELC pastor, and a couple weeks ago when I was here, I didn't make it last week, a couple weeks, what struck me during the discussion was just kind of the intensity of the emotions that were arising from this ancient story.
Hi there, I'm Jan. I graduated from the UOI in 2006 in journalism. For me, Ruth, everything about Ruth is brand new, so everything is just it's been a brand new experience.
Thank you. I also graduated in 2006.
Oh, sweet.
I'm Daniel. Most of you know me. You don't, you probably will. Fine. So I work in history here, and then on the outside I'm a certified genealogist. I don't know, this is sort of new for me, but most of the time when everyone's talked about it, I've been cleaning communionware or doing the offering and other stuff that keeps this place from going. So I've kind of gotten bits and pieces the past couple of times, but the discussions seem pretty intense and stuff, so that's always a good sign.
Hi, I'm Kenji. I'm a second year grad student studying personality psych, and this is my first week studying, so that's it.
Oh, cool. You're in for a treat, hopefully.
I'm Amy. We've not been saying our pronouns. I'll just say mine. Oh, yeah. I'm she. She, her, hers. And I am like, this is such an amazing, like the literary complexity of the story is really fun to me. And I think what also is really fun for me is how, in my mind, I kind of tried to imagine the communities that were hearing it, like, orally, right? And like, it's just so, it's such a great tale. In a lot of ways, it's got disturbing parts too, but it's such a great tale, and I really think, so the narrative complexity is really fun for me.
Thanks, Amy.
I'm Henry. I'm a senior in integrated biology, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm also new to the book of Ruth, but it's been fun doing the discussions that I attended to last week, and I'm happy to learn more and excited to learn more.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brendan. I'm a sophomore studying sculpture and environmental science, and I go by he, him, his. Let's see. I don't really know anything about the Book of Ruth because this is like my first discussion on it. So I got a little synopsis of it, but that's it.
Awesome.
I'm Molly. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I study linguistics. I haven't read Ruth before, so this Bible study has been really interesting. I also like kind of the topic of immigration within it, kind of how we can apply that to today. And also that lady loving aspect is really interesting.
I'm happy to talk more about that with you after.
Hello, my name is Brittany. I'm a senior studying Spanish and speech and hearing science. My pronouns would be she, her, and hers. And I don't know too much about the Book of Ruth. I came last week, and I learned a lot more. But I really like how applicable the story is to the current day situation with immigration, and I just think that it's a story that's really important for our time.
I'm Steve. I'm a fifth year PhD student. I finished my undergrad in 2006 at the University of Iowa. PhD student in urban planning. Almost done. He, his, him. I'm actually, coincidentally, I'm Jewish, so we came here today as liturgical tourists, and my religion follows me. And
what can I say? You can't.
Yeah, I know. It's like, hey, how about that? I usually go to Sinai. I don't usually go to Hillel for services. And also just a preface, we have to leave at 6:30ish, so if we get up early, it's not because we're upset or anything.
I'm glad you're upset. Honestly, I love the disagreement. That's cool.
Thank you. But what I remember about Ruth is it's been so long, but I do remember the supplication gestures. I think I remember thinking everyone's always throwing themselves at each other's feet, kind of all throughout this book and many others, but it's particularly noticeable and salient in this book. But it has been a long time, and I'm happy to reacquaint myself with it over the next 10 minutes.
I'm Claire, and I'm a fourth year PhD student in cultural anthropology, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and my only familiarity with Ruth is doing an illustration of Ruth as a second grader for an illustrated Bible. So
that's really cool.
That's it.
Okay, so it sounds like at least for the bulk of you, you have the basics of the understanding of the story. Mm-hmm. So I won't spend too much going into it. But as I said, if you want to just take a pass. I don't know that I have enough for everyone, so if you want to just kind of share two per packet. But as I said tonight, what I'll be discussing is, as the title of this article states, illegal immigration and the Book of Ruth. Kind of what does this story from ancient times offer us in today's discussion about border crossing and immigration and the idea of being a citizen and welcoming the stranger. So I'm kind of going to give away, well, Margot Schlanger, rather, is going to give away a little bit about what we're discussing here. If somebody would like to read the second paragraph, please, and we'll kind of go from there.
The second paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
What does this have to do with, how do you pronounce that? Shabbat?
Oh, Shavuot. Shavuot.
Shavuot?
Yeah, Shavuot.
Shavuot.
And I'll explain what that is in just a second.
Okay, Shavuot. And Ruth. Two things. First, Ruth is a story not just of conversion, but of immigration, and legal immigration at that. I'll explain below. Second, Ruth stands in for all of us as the best kind of receiver of Torah. She is simultaneously brave and kind. She chooses to make compassion her guiding value, and she boldly ventures to join a new community that in turn accepts her fully. In the story, Ruth's kindness, her...
Hesed.
Wait, Hesed?
Yes.
Her Hesed awakes corresponding compassion in those around her.
You can finish with the next sentence.
I hope this year she also inspires our communities to act with kindness and
Chutzpah. You might have heard that term before.
to welcome strangers in need as she was welcomed.
So that was a lot of words you didn't know.
Yeah.
And good on you for struggling with that. Okay, so firstly, so the holiday that Kenji, that Kenji just mentioned, Shavuot. So I mentioned to a bunch of friends and colleagues that I was coming here to speak about the Book of Ruth. And the first reaction that I got, at least from my Jewish friends and colleagues, was, oh, you're like 2 months early. And I'll explain why. So traditionally, there are certain texts of our Hebrew canon that are associated with holidays, right? And so you read those particular books on those holidays. So coming up about a month after Passover, which Passover starts in about 2.5 weeks, is the holiday of Shavuot. I think it's called in the Christian calendar the Pentecost, or the holiday of the Pentecost, or something.
Is it? I think so. I think it is. Yeah.
But to summarize very briefly, it is the holiday that celebrates the giving of the Torah and the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai. Right? And so it kind of sort of follows, right? So Passover is the celebration of the liberation of the Israelites from Egyptian bondage. And so it sort of follows chronologically within that time frame about 6 weeks to a month after they are in the wilderness, the desert of Sinai, and then Moses rises to the top of that mountain and receives the Torah from God, right? And so this is that big, huge celebration of that moment, right? Shavuot literally means weeks, celebrating those weeks leading up to that moment, right? It's also a big harvest holiday. Usually that is around the time of the spring harvest in Israel. And so those themes, because there's so much of those elements of farming and of being present in the land, because those themes are so present in the Book of Ruth, that's the book that is paired with this holiday. So in about 2 months' time or so, we'll be reading this again. And so that's that holiday of Shavuot.
Is that when people put up tents? Is that it?
No, that's Sukkot.
Oh, yeah.
In the fall.
Okay.
This coming holiday will be late October because Rosh Hashanah is a little bit late this coming year. Really, really late, actually. Anyway, but so as Kenji said, so what are we talking about here? And what is this story, right? So this is a story of not just conversion, right? There is this idea that Ruth is the first convert to Judaism. That in staying with Naomi and her family and becoming a part of Boaz's family, being welcomed into that clan, she becomes Jewish. And so this is kind of that first instance of what that of conversion, of becoming a part of a community that you're not initially, that you see in the text. But in addition, it's also a story of migration. This is somebody who could have very easily stayed in Moab. We don't know what her comfort level would have been there. That's not really explained. But she was given the opportunity by Naomi to go home, or what Naomi would have called home, right? Orpah did it. It was given to her, and instead she says, and you have it in the text here, it's kind of the most famous line in Ruth, right? Do not entreat me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For, here, I'll highlight it right here on the big screen, if I can. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. That's a big deal. Like that's huge. Somebody actively taking that community on, or taking that identity on and saying, I want to be with you. I want to stay with you. Taking that risk. That's a huge risk. And so you have that story of migration, of starting over, of being in a new land that you know absolutely nothing about, but knowing this is where you need to be for whatever reason, for reasons of community, for reasons of personal safety, familial safety, right? Ruth is saying, no, I'm not going home. I don't know what awaits me at home. I want to be here with you in this place. So already there's this transcending of borders. There's this idea that Ruth may or may not be welcomed in Judah with Naomi and with this community that she doesn't know. She's taking a huge risk. So we see parallels here, and Margot Schlanger brings them out as the article here continues, right? If you continue, sorry, I'm chewing. There's the paragraph that starts with more than that. Can I get a volunteer to read as well, please?
Sure. This is on this page, right?
Yes.
More than that, Ruth's is the story of illegal immigration. Because she was a Moabite, the Torah expresses excluded Ruth from the Jewish community. Deuteronomy proclaims, no Ammonite or Moabite shall enter the assembly of the Lord. Seeking to reconcile the book of Ruth's plot and that passage, commenting rabbis have long offered an implausible and legalistic reading of Torah. The bar was against a Moabite, but not a Moabitess. They suggested, without much justification, to offer for the distinction.
So, we, within our tradition, are fond of kind of creating loopholes, I'll say, as an opportunity to look at the text and go, why this, not that? Right? Like logic proofs, you know? Please go on.
I prefer a kinder reading. Ruth was accepted into the community of Judah because her compassion and her need elicited corresponding compassion from Boaz and from the community itself. Compassion overrode law, at least a law as devoid of ethical content as the anti-Moabite prescription.
Okay, thank you. So, again, Ruth's compassion, the desire that she shows to stay with Naomi and to be present with her, and to show her compassion and kindness and essentially be a daughter to her. Or maybe not so much a daughter, but mention that another time. But to be in relationship with her when that wasn't needed,
I think
right?
I want to hear a little bit about that tonight if you can.
I'll do what I can, I promise. But again, right, you're seeing Ruth's compassion. And so she's brought into the community because of that, because she demonstrates her humanity. And there's something really poignant and beautiful to that. So I like this reading and I like the article, and please, if you can, feel free to take it home with you and kind of read up a little bit more about this perspective. Before I go on, and I will be introducing you a little bit more to these parallels, and in particular an organization that I want to talk about called HIAS. But before I kind of go on and really hammer in these parallels between the story of Ruth and kind of where we're at in terms of immigration now, questions or thoughts so far?
They're really quiet with you, Ari.
I really ask questions.
They usually are really, really.
Put something out into the ether here. I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts. You can question me, I promise you.
It does seem to be an exception, as you point out, exception to the law. Between mercy and justice, choose mercy, right? Something like that, right? But it also, as you mentioned earlier, though, you always look for, she was a Moabess, I guess, or something. That caught me, in a sense, is like kind of splitting the hairs, right? But coming up with an answer to the situation, even though the law kind of clearly proscribes, I guess, certain behavior.
Right.
And you look for a way of choosing mercy rather than justice.
Ari, are there examples in the Hebrew scriptures that I'm not aware of, where Israelites would have followed that? Would have followed that law, right? Would have, oh, you're a Moabite, get here.
Some would, I guess some would, right?
I'm just wondering if there, obviously, we studied a little bit last week of the relationship between Israelites and Moabites a little bit, right? And so knew that there was a little bit of tension, or maybe a lot of bit of tension. But again, are there stories then, in the scriptures themselves that you know about, which are really harsh toward Moabites? For then meaning this would be super radical of a story then. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know, but I will do my homework on it.